Hello, this is December 10th, 2017.
Okay, so he says here, yeah. Okay.
And this is the Divvy community meeting. And we have the community managers here. We were just discussing that Jeff Anthony doesn't have time for participating as a manager anymore at this point. He's had some health problems and he has his own business. Uh-oh.
Well, Jim, I mean, I think maybe what you're getting at here is that do we officially remove him as a manager here in this meeting at this time?
Well, I mean, we can do that, or we can leave it open. I guess, Seder ID, David, or what's his name, Daniel, is still in the managers group, although he hasn't been active. I guess, when a manager retires, the question is, do we leave the door open or do we shut the door?
Right.
And at this point, I'm happy just leaving the door open.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what that would
So I think this is what happens. Okay. The process is supposed to be that the community leaders oversee the managers, that we have people like Brent who are community leaders. They aren't managers, and they fall back into the leader category when they step down as a manager.
Okay.
So he would remain in the community leader group in the Slack, but he wouldn't have management authority in the Divvy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is managers come up through community leaders, or they can, right? Not all managers come up through community leaders, or do all managers have to come up through community leader?
The community leaders could hire a manager. They don't necessarily have to be a leader to be a manager, but normally they would be. Mm-hmm. The leaders would choose managers.
Yeah.
The leaders are chosen by a liquid democracy, governance by consent. Okay, and we're going, I mean, that's a process that's happening with the our chain somewhat.
Well, I think that the maybe the point here is that we want people who are we want a pool of people who understand what Divvy is all about, right? And that presumably means Divvy leaders, and so after someone has been a manager but becomes inactive, in this case, Jeff essentially saying, I'm taking myself out of the manager position because I'm inactive. What you're saying is, all right, they're inactive. He's no longer engaged in management decisions. However, he has a tremendous amount of knowledge with regard to Divvy, and we would like to continue to have him in a leader position.
Yeah, and I guess in the genesis here, we've sort of uh, become leaders and managers by default, and that does happen. People who assume a role get that role. That's part of the process here. Now, if we look, I think it would be good if we moved on to the.
Well, no, Jim, wait. We're trying to resolve something here.
Yeah, well, I
Okay,
was going to show the R chain, consider it, so you can see how the process is supposed to be happening in our chain. And in the consider it here, we have the community leader nominations. And anybody who has consent of the people and no objections is, in essence, becomes a leader, a community leader.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, this will be replaced by a liquid democracy, delegative democracy. Everybody doesn't have to be involved in everything. They have representatives, which are the leaders. And yeah, as you can see here, I consent to all these leaders. So I don't have just one. I'm giving my consent to all of these people being leaders, and many other people have as well. So this is sort of like the leader. Now the leaders, assuming this gains some momentum, because right now it still has no momentum, these leaders will choose a management team. Okay? They will pick managers to manage the group. Then, this process is somewhat flexible. They can choose like a CEO. The CEO can choose the rest of his team. It's flexible process of how the leaders decide to choose the managers.
Okay, so how does this relate to making a decision to essentially comply with Jeff's wishes to no longer be a manager?
Well, we're the management team, and we have the authority to decide on the management team. The leaders. My point here was that the leaders, by a weak consensus, can overrule. Quiet. Quiet. My only point was that there's a leadership role that that he can fall into because he has we don't have any reason to think that anybody wants him out of the leadership role.
No, that's correct. However, he's saying here. He says in this last sentence, he says, therefore, over the months of January and February 2017, I will commit to tying up any loose ends I may have left and offer feedback as needed towards Divvy endeavors, but must step down from acting in capacity of manager as I cannot dedicate myself at this time. Okay, so what I would offer here is a motion that we accept Jeff's desire to step down from acting in capacity of manager, and so that as of the adoption of this motion, he would no longer be a manager, but I would further move that we put him officially by manager consensus into the role, or let's say back into the role of community leader, where we will still have access to the knowledge that he has, and where he will still be in a position to, as he says, offer feedback as needed. Okay?
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Okay. I agree. Gillian, you agree? Okay, so the motion passed. Okay, I'll just, okay, so we have inconsiderate, we have not much activity. We have some new activities here that okay, we don't have, we're missing our new activities here, and either we have to change existing activities to match them, or we have to add new activities, and that's pretty much where we were last week. On the R chain, we have one new proposal that I added here, which is the W3C R chain bridge, which is sort of bringing together the new Divvy architecture with the future of R chain, and the Bring Your Own ID project, and building decentralized architecture that's designed to move on to the R chain, and also bridge the R chain with the web, so that all of the semantic information on the web becomes accessible in R chain. So we have the community leader nominations here. I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm not even up to date in the R chain Slack.
How is progress in general going with Archain? I also didn't keep track.
It's going well. Okay, I mean the thing with the organization, and that's, I guess, our second report is the R chain. Still, there's not much activity there. They're still sort of floundering to come up with a structure for the co-op. That's coming together well. And I guess Patrick hasn't really come on board with the R chain. It's sort of separate, autonomous organization from the ground up, and it still has to emerge. But in terms of the the roadmap or the plan for the bringing in strong anonymous identities so that there can be a democratic process in the ArtChain community, and the decentralized applications that will carry us until ArtChain is done, both in terms of the Rcoin marketplace on Ethereum and our governance and identity and distributed applications.
So Jim, let me ask you a question. In your mind, are there applications that we are developing or could be developing in Divvy that could be merged or adopted by ArtChain at some time in the future? In other words, you're saying that they're kind of in the process of becoming something, but at the same time, what I'm suggesting is that maybe Divvy can carry the ball in some ways, and essentially move their project forward, and by having adoptable applications. In other words, we would share them with them.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're doing. I mean, we're continuing. While the OurChain.cc is sort of stagnant, we're continuing with the Bring Your Own ID and the DAO, the Divvy marketplace or the coin marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll in essence have those to offer OurChain, whether or not they become very active in their development.
Okay.
And at some point, the Divvy can make a proposal to OurChain to get a budget for various aspects of it that they want done.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that that the overlap in the two communities may allow some of the people who would be involved with ArtChain could provide skill sets to Divvy?
Yeah, it's okay. Certainly a tremendous amount of unity of purpose or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and we have the Ethereum coin is the art coin, and the identity. I mean, it's all it's all in there.
It's all somewhat incestuous.
Yeah, and so the second. So the third report I have in here was basically on our new architecture. We went over this briefly last week. The basic model we're following is the one at ethereum.org, where we're taking the standard contracts that they offer and modifying them for our use. And then we were talking about working with consensus.net with a possible partnership. There's a number of components that we're looking to use, developed by consensus.net and supported by them, which includes the U-port, the truffle framework for Ethereum applications, and potentially the MetaMask. MetaMask introduces another coin, but it's a distributed application framework that we can at least start with in test mode to provide, puts together your Ethereum identity and everything so you can make an application in a browser without a back end, basically, where your back end is Ethereum. Now we will have a back end for our. Okay, we're using the solid personal data store here, and we have the. So we're integrating with the semantic web and web ID. And then I guess I just have some links here. Where do I have this? When we look at freeid.org now, got to get this going. We have a WordPress instance here, and this is the WordPress instance where we're configuring the WordPress login to use OpenID on our Glue server. But what I put there for now is content regarding our web ID and including, instructions for creating a web ID and such, which is also
Jim, do you recommend that each of us create our a web ID and start managing our identities through web ID?
Well, here's the thing. It's a steep learning curve, okay? And I suggest that you get through that. I suggest that you do go through the first steps of doing it, and ultimately exposing your personal data store on the web. Right now, like I said, there's we haven't gotten to the point yet where I've gotten any applications working on my personal solid server. I've only gotten to the point where I can log into it, and I need to I need to set my access control lists so that I can actually access stuff, and I still haven't figured that out.
But I mean, you see this as essentially the platform for BYOD.
Yeah, and distributed applications in general. I mean, if we look at the Doki here, okay, it asks me what is to log in with my certificate, which I had to install manually in Chrome. It only gets stored automatically in Firefox. And then, we have this environment which we have to learn how to use, which has all this functionality, and it doesn't show me being signed in here.
Do we have you identified an expert in this domain? I mean,
the experts are in the experts are in the Gitter channel. Okay, this is where Tim Berners-Lee,
okay,
and the other people here are dealing with this. There's also another channel on the Doki, Dokili, whatever it is.
I think it's Doki, as in okie dokie.
Well, in some of the articles, they take out the dot and they call it Dokili. There's, .li.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's Dokili. But
Okay.
I guess people probably call it Doki. See, here's the Dokili. Okay, I showed you this last week, right? You saw this.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay, this is where you have the annotations. This is really set up for scientific publication. Okay, when you have references and links in here, and you go to print format, it puts in all the proper reference notation for all the references in your document, which is really cool.
Now,
this will revolutionize scientific publishing, once it's mature.
but is this? I mean, the user has total management control, right? In other words, you get to essentially build your profile, and you get to determine when it actually goes live on the internet. Or is this completely organic? I mean, you create a presence, you populate it, and it's constantly out there.
Yeah, no, you have spaces, local spaces, and on your machine that are not exposed, as well as what's exposed with your own personal solid server. And
Yeah.
the stuff that's exposed on your solid server is only exposed according to your access control list.
Right. Your permissions, basically.
Your permissions, right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I mean, this, yeah. I mean, and this is very much. It's got a lot of the functionality of what OpenID would want to have.
Yeah, it's much more than that. I mean, it's it's a personal. It allows you to manage all your personal information.
Yeah.
And put it on the web, and then all of these structures, which are they're based on vocabularies and ontologies in the semantic web. All of these will correspond with our chain structures when we get there.
Right.
And
okay. So I mean, our chain will may actually. It may be expeditious for our chain to be adopting this architecture.
Yeah, and well, in order to interoperate with the World Wide Web, it has to.
Yes. Right.
And this is something that I don't think the R-Chain community is really thinking about at this point, but and the blockchain community in general is not looking at integrating with the web standards. And that's what our function is really interoperation. How do we make these communities interoperate, this information interoperate?
Right.
Okay, so I logged in here. Okay, and I can edit the document. I don't know how I edit it exactly. I can just edit it. Like Google Documents, sort of, except that other people aren't seeing what I'm typing in real time. Doesn't do that yet.
So how does it, how is it decentralized? How does it work if it doesn't involve blockchain technology?
It's decentralized in the sense that it's the entire World Wide Web. Okay. And it's a permission data store, and the functionality is in the browser. So all the computation is put out to the edges of the network in the browser, all the logic.
And who is like who's hosting the files?
Well, I'm hosting my own, which I can doesn't do much right now, but you know, I have an identity on DataBox.
So,
But
so is this, in a sense, using the World Wide Web like a blockchain?
not really, no. A blocker. Okay, hey Gary, welcome.
Hey, Gary.
It's, you know, I mean, in the sense that a blockchain is a data store, yes. But blockchains aren't made to be a good data store. They don't hold a lot of data. Well, okay, this is all the data on the internet. And then my personal server, I have hooked to freetrust.org, port 8443. So if I go to here, it asks me to log in with my web ID. And I say, okay. And that's as far as I got. But I do have it running, and I do have an index page out there. But if I try to access it,
Okay, so like
says access is denied. And, you know, they told me I have to update my root access control list so that I can access my own server. And
this is where some of the technical challenges arise. In
right.
other words, it's
Steep
not
learning curve.
friendly. Yeah.
so you as a client, you're hosting the files basically on either your machine or the server. Or...
Right. Yeah. This one happens to be on my laptop. Okay. I installed Node on my machine. I went through the install process, and then I just run the Node command prompt. Go to my solid directory and do a solid start, and that runs my server.
Okay.
On Windows. And then the other thing I have to do is I run PuTTY, and I have to add this to the instructions. And in my settings here, under tunnels, I set up a tunnel report, and this is in freetrust.net. I set up a tunnel to port 8443 from my local machine to port 8443 on freetrust on freeid.net. It's, you know, freeid.org is where it is. The same machine as freetrust.
So
So this exposes my personal server at freetrust.net, which is freeid.org, port 443.
Yeah. So then.
And are you sorry, Billy.
So then with this, basically, Dokili, or what was the name again? Dokieli. It's basically, you still then have the problem that because the storage is not distributed, it's rather like centrally located, right? So
Right.
if your machine or your server can access your
the process of keeping backups or providing redundancy is done separately. And they have several techniques for that. In the environment where you have rsync, they usually use rsync to keep the to keep the copies of it synced together. But so I mean, caching and replication and redundancy are not part of this, and that's part of the reason why we still use the blockchain. Okay, the blockchain isn't for storing big files. Okay, all our big files can get stored on our own personal servers or on any web server anywhere on the internet.
Yeah, there I always think of storage coin. I don't know if you know it. Maybe you know it. It's basically they are creating a blockchain, and connected to that blockchain, they have like a decentralized kind of storage mechanism. So they only use the blockchain for doing the economic model surrounding this distributed network of storage. But
yeah, I mean, there's a million things. IPFS is the most popular. And there's and then of course there's what do you call it? SafeNet? I can't even think.
maybe.
But yeah, there's a lot of back-end type systems. Okay, what we're doing here is we're using the web as a back-end system. Okay, and we're separating the issue of redundancy and reliability from the storage at this point. We're basically using vanilla web enhanced with web ID, web access control lists for access. And
So Jim, I mean, I think what you're saying here is that with regard to blockchain entries, which could be hashes of the content in your own personal, in your Dokili account, basically, right? That would be like snapshots in time.
yeah, it could. I mean, you can use the blockchain to prove content. There's other ways of providing proof and corroboration on the web besides, the blockchain method. There's other distributed mechanisms that can be used. And, in the evolution of this, before we get on our chain, okay, we can't do microtransactions on Ethereum without some kind of microtransaction facility on top of it that uses. I mean, that's part of our plan is to use the token holders for the escrow in handling peer-to-peer connections as the trusted third party. And, I mean, there's mechanisms like that. We can automate them.
Well, you're saying in place of, but I mean, if we're talking Ethereum, we're talking gas, right?
Yeah, well, you when you use a capability like Lightning and what's the one called Morden or something for Ethereum is one thing not quite ready for prime time. You're actually doing a lot of micro transactions safely through a trusted third party, and then just recording the summary of transactions on Ethereum periodically. You're not actually doing every micro transaction through Ethereum.
Mm.
You're only periodically updating the sum. And, I mean, it could be, since you are charged gas every time, you might say, don't bother to post it to Ethereum until I've got $10 or before I've got $1 or even 10 cents. Okay, because it could take you all day to make a dime in microtransactions or whatever. And so you might do it once a day, whether you need to or not, and if it's over $1.
But in all cases here, we're talking about a sort of an aggregated security management system. In other words, managing your own identity data and whatever else. I mean, if you're talking about Dokili, then you know, they're adding a whole lot of other functionalities, which, you know, it is actually part of your identity because you are what you do. You are what you are. You know, so my point, I'm trying to bring this back to BYOD and you know, a Divvy strategic project, right?
Right. And what we're doing a decentralized architecture with connected Web ID, Ethereum, UPort, and OpenID Connect.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's you know, that's basically our roadmap. You know, although what order we're going to do what is a little bit flexible.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, again, when you look at Dokili, if we're using their platform to manage identities in the BYOD,
We're not using Dokili. Dokili is just one authoring environment that runs on here. They have blogging environments. They have other things as well. This is just happens to be one cool example, and I haven't quite figured out how to make how to make my blog yet. Like I said, it's a slow learning curve. Which blog tools to use and how to install them in my personal server. I do have space. There, you can get space on other systems. Now they usually limit it. Like on DataBox, I think it's limited to 100K space per person. So it's not a lot of storage. But obviously, if you are exposing your own server, it's you know, how many terabyte drives have you plugged into it? It's basically unlimited space. And space is a precious commodity on the cloud. So ideally, what would happen is there would be a backup of my stuff on your server and on Killian's, so that I could you know, be always online, so to speak.
yeah, a federated, distributed system.
Yeah, and you know, all these little things have to be worked out and configured and figured out. But right now, what we can do is we can go to the what happened to my we can go to freeid.org. We can create a web ID, back up our personal certificate, install that on Chrome or anywhere else we want it. So we have to do it. Saving it on Chrome initially failed. And so I had to go through an ID recovery process. In order to get my certificate.
So Jim, again, within the BYOD project, what I think you're doing here is you're going through all the steps to arrive at at least a starting point,
Right.
for a robust identity for everyone participating in the BYOD project. Is that correct?
That's correct. Everyone should.
Okay, so I just want to make a point here. All right, this is a very involved, convoluted process that requires a fair amount of troubleshooting, it sounds to me, right?
It shouldn't be. It should be pretty straightforward.
Well, but it isn't at this point. And my point here is that everyone in that project at some point is probably going to have someone lead them through the process, right? And initially, that may be you training an individual who can lead everyone else. In other words, that's kind of their designated task. Is in other words, what I'm talking about here is moving BYOD. Divvy BYOD project forward. One of the things that we're going to need, which is for everybody to have this entry-level ID that you're putting together here, right?
Right. And,
okay.
And what I've done is certainly we can walk through this with we can work through this together with a buddy who's been through the process. You can in essence, you can go to the log and
is there anybody out there at this other than yourself that can do this? And I guess, the second question is, have you been successful in actually getting to, that entry level point that you would consider the minimum?
The minimum, yeah. I have three things here. One is creating the web ID. I think everybody can go through that, and if they have any problems or questions, they can put comments in the document. They can ask in Slack. They can come into a Zoom and have somebody look at it. I think that most people should be able to follow these instructions and set up a web ID. Okay, and the next thing is to learn Dokili. And there's links here for everything about Dokili. And that's a learning curve, and it's very informative. You learn a lot from it. And then the third thing is running your own server. Okay, and that's something that can be done. And then I guess the final thing would be exposing your personal server.
What are you defining as a personal server?
The solid server, that's the permissioned web server that you can run to expose whatever you want in a permissioned way, including your identity, whatever, on the internet.
This is through Solid.
Right. This is the storage for your distributed application.
Okay, so they are providing they're providing a federated server environment for you to essentially stake out a portion of that federated server system.
Well, when you say federated, we're talking about federated identity. That will be the future step. I'm considering, that we'll probably use the glue server for federating our open identities.
Mm.
Our open identities will be provided on our Solid server.
But is Solid, is it a centralized server? I mean, are these...
Everybody can run their own Solid server. This is your personal space that's permissioned.
I know, but it's on a server in some individual location, or is it spread over a bunch of different servers in different places?
It's in one place at this point, but I will copy mine onto yours and onto Killian's, and you'll copy yours onto mine and to Killian's, and we will have redundancy. Okay.
You're saying copy it onto my machine,
Right.
sit here in my office, and Killian's machine in Berlin. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And as nodes.
Right. Well, yeah, and they're really just web addresses.
Okay.
It's content on the web. That's
Okay. So the idea here is that you're creating a distributed architecture basically for storing redundantly data.
Well, redundancy will come later. Right now, we're just trying to store it one step at a time.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, I'm
just looking at the security aspect of it. In other words, if you're committing all your stuff to a server in one location, what are the ramifications of that?
You got to back it up. Okay, what we're doing by exposing the servers through freeid.org, we're not exposing your personal machine to the internet. Okay, we're providing access to your server through another server. So we're not exposing your machine. It's secure, and it's, access control by personal certificates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
I think like a question is there, like who's responsible for the content that is being then hosted on each individual machine? Like if I'm, for example, pushing out content that maybe has violates IP rights or some other laws and push it on your machines, then you don't want to be held liable for this, right?
right, and if I made a mistake and I gave you access to my machine, and I didn't trust you to not fuck with me, I made a mistake. But the most they can do is ask you to take it down. You didn't post it. I mean, it's just like any other site where you can post anything you want in any text box anywhere. The owner of the website isn't responsible for what you put in the text box. Um, but you do have to watch it. I mean, if if you're and you are responsible in that you would have to take it down if it's copyrighted material.
Right. So
In which case, I could just cut you off. Say, don't use my machine anymore.
right. So I guess, yeah. So I guess how it would work is then like each individual person would decide, okay, I will accept content pushed to me by that person because I trust that person, but every other node or person in the network that wants to push content on my client or my server, then like first has to get the permission by myself, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. Managing the access control list is we have to figure out how to do. I mean, you can edit them easily. Everything's in Turtle, and Turtle is a very simple format for putting in data, structured data. And there's all kinds of tools for editing Turtle data. But there's also interfaces. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that people have written to help manage this stuff. The thing is that a lot of it doesn't seem to do exactly what you want to do, so you would have to modify it. But the basic idea is you have an architecture where you have a client that's implemented to run in your browser. Then the back end for that client is your personal data store and other data stores on the net that you have permissions on. So instead of using a traditional database, you're using the web as a database. Hey, Gary, any questions?
Also, I suggest once we are done with this report item, maybe we go to the one where I'm also more involved in, because I have to go before it's 6. So maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so
no, I don't have any questions. I'm following along and typing on another computer. Good. See you.
Okay. So I guess the main thing here is that you should participate in the log and set up try setting up a web ID and at least get through that part of it and see what you can learn about Dokili, and then the next step would be to run your own server and expose it. And by the time you get through all that and you can start to use all these tools that are out there that use WebID and find out what the best tools are and whatever, then exposing our own Dokili, so to speak, which probably what we want to expose as Divvy initially is a blogging platform, okay, using this distributed architecture. And ultimately replace Slack with a decentralized application.
Yeah, that's, I think, a good, a powerful feature. At the same time, there are already various projects taking on this task. So we
don't want to develop anything that already is out there. The question is, what is there? I know there's been a number of social web projects that are kind of stalled. But
there's, for example, this decent.ch. They have, like, they are looking to come out with decentralized publishing. I think early 2017 or to mid 2017. Exactly.
So this is, I don't know how compatible with the web it is, but
Yeah.
this is a decentralized platform that exists today and people are using. The problem is the learning curve, and apparently they can't reach it. But
I'm Googling for it now.
I can show the saved page. It's in the.
It's definitely the right URL. I don't know what's that.
And what that is. Oh well.
Here's the white paper. I put it in the chat. Yeah, I think also Namecoin is also interested for decentralized like hosting, so might also be a way to.
Yeah. This is using like its own blockchain and mining and stuff. This is definitely not what we want.
Okay.
Okay, so what? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong document here. Okay, so our big action item here is to update the roadmap, and I guess that pretty much falls on me to make, because we're having some major changes in our roadmap here. And
Okay, so are you gonna just start editing, or how are we gonna do it? Do you want to be working in the document that's available on the internet to anyone with the link?
probably I would want to make the updates, available as soon as possible.
Yes.
Because what's there is definitely out of date.
Okay. I'm willing to work with you in an editorial capacity on that.
Okay, so let's see. Today is Tuesday. We're going to be meeting on the. We're going to be scheduling another meeting. Okay, so let's go to the. I still fourth report. Still the mail is not working on Divvy Dow, and I'm at a loss because it gets sent to Google, and then it doesn't get returned or rejected, or it's a real headache, and I don't. So I'm going to try to have to maybe get somebody to look at it with me to see if they can figure out what's wrong, because the mail is being sent to Google, it's being accepted by Google, but it's never delivered or returned. Fifth report, Inspiral collaboration. Okay.
Right. So yeah, I was like I wrote in Spiral and received a positive response. They seem to have like a team of ambassadors as well that they are yeah, I don't know, having, and one of them is coming to Berlin next weekend. So like he wrote me an email and like we set up a meeting. So I guess like what we can do there is then that I meet with them and see like talk like what are they doing, what are we doing, and then see where we can collaborate, and then set up like a Zoom meeting where like we meet, like we can all basically go and meet not just him but all the ambassadors that are interested in getting involved and see where we can collaborate.
Okay, it would be good to have our roadmap updated for that. And our business plan, because we're really looking, I don't know how we want to present it, but we're really presenting our business model as Inspiral is looking for a business model.
Yeah, I mean, like what I figured, what probably will be most interesting to them is in general the proof of participation economical concept. So for all their projects, I assume it would be probably good to implement such a model that rewards participation. So I guess that is in the end something they will be really interested in, right? So
Right, and the funding model. Now, the token funding model that we're using for MaxForce and everything else, is a funding mechanism. What they have is they have a budgeting mechanism that works very well from them for a decentralized organization to allocate the funds. They don't have the other half of it of getting the funds in the first place.
yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, they can probably, like I assume they can use Divvy tokens.
Each project can have its own token. I think
sure.
model that we can certainly borrow some from the model that EtherCamp uses, and perhaps even work with EtherCamp on providing, project tokens. Each level is is essentially an autonomous organization that can have its own token funding model.
Yeah.
On a project basis. I think in the notes here, we have the Ether camp.
Why don't you put it? I created a notes up above. Above the action item.
Oh, sorry. And what was the other the other note that I had in here on here was the other thing was obviously was the uh, the payoff matrix.
So EtherCamp project token funding model, how do they do it? So the Ethereum Foundation issued the Ether Gold token and then just brought
We
it
just
into.
created an Ether Gold token, which we can consider to be like a Divvy token.
Okay.
We're using them. I mean, we could use the actual support that they've developed for EtherCamp, or we can, modify it to use any tokens we want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we have to mention EtherCamp even, depending on how closely we want to be associated with them. But the basic model they used was people invested in projects by buying the tokens for that project.
Within the hackathon? You mean projects within the hackathon?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did these tokens then represent? Equity or?
Well, I guess what they did was the winners of the hackathon received the gold, I guess, which was good for Ether.
Ah, okay. So just monetary value, yeah.
Right. So they could spend the Ether on their projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move to the agenda items. Okay, and we have Plant Eater and Gary, who we approved last week as managers. We were going to set up an interview to, I guess, come to sort of an understanding or whatever in terms of what kind of participation each of them might be willing to provide.
So, Jim, maybe I can add a little more perspective here. If you look at the current managers, or past managers, I'm thinking specifically Jeff, as past manager. Each one of us has essentially staked out an area in Divvy where we're bringing real value to Divvy. Killian, for instance, manages the website, jumps in there, keeps that current, provides functionality. Your role, Jim, you're kind of all over the place, but you're a key person in several projects. And myself, I'm very much a document person. I create finished documents. I've had quite a big role in creating our foundation documents and so forth. Okay. We have other roles that need to be filled, like let's say a networking coordinator, or a projects coordinator. These are some of the roles that Killian and I worked on just the other day. you know, to essentially define all of the roles that we need to fill within Divvy. Okay, so I would like to look at it in terms of new managers filling some of those roles.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, it's clear that there is just so much work that needs to be done that we have to expand, and we need people to fill the holes in the roles.
Yeah. Well, hey, Killian, do you want to pull up that document and paste it in the chat? I mean, that might be a good place for us to work right now.
So, or in the chat, yeah, or in the meeting document.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it in the meeting document.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going into the Divvy Google Drive folder.
So, Gary, are you still here?
Yes, Jim, I'm still here, and I was listening to the comments about taking on specific areas of need in the Divvy project. I'm still not exactly sure how I would be most helpful. That's why I kind of downvoted myself on the consider it the other day. But I do. I mean, so far it's kind of a one-way relationship. I seem to be getting the most as far as learning from the Divvy, and I'm hoping to be able to give something back to the community.
Okay, well, we can, you know, I guess try to identify a role. We need to, you know, you were saying you were working on another computer. Did you get another computer now?
Yes, it's an old laptop that decided to start working a little better. It's Windows 7. I tell you what I have been involved with for the last few days is it hasn't been related to Divvy, but I've been reading Greg's latest brain candy paper and getting a lot of inspiration out of that. And it's motivated me to learn Scheme, and I mean that only in learn the Scheme language well enough to understand the programming paradigm that Scheme suggests.
Uh-huh.
So obviously what I've been up to for the last few days is only tangentially related to anything that Divvy is doing.
So, I mean, the direction we're going now is into the semantic web area. You have interest in that area?
Yes, I am, and I understand what you're doing, trying to get these nodes set up, and I really like this idea quite a bit. And I have gone out and looked at the documents that you've posted lately, and I like the idea of getting a node running. I don't know that I can actually do that, as was being discussed earlier about there's some, 16 or so steps there that need to be followed, and I'm not sure if I'm up to speed on many of those steps.
Well, I can certainly, walk you through it. in a Zoom.
I would appreciate it if I get myself to the point where I could benefit from that interaction. I really have learned a lot from similar kinds of goings on here in Divvy and our chain.
All right.
Here, let me just say something else. And I'm going to, I mean, I think that tying human resources to Divvy strategic goals is a rational way of looking at bringing on board human resources, okay, of which a Divvy manager is a human resource, okay? So now, with regard to Divvy strategic goals, I think, this is also a living document, and has never been fully completed. It's something of a catch-all document. But my point here is that coming in as a manager, at the very, very, very least, one has to be well versed in Divvy strategic goals, and that it makes a lot of sense to be conversant with the other documents, the community document, the roadmap document, the executive summary, the sponsor document, because these documents embody the Divvy principles and Divvy aspirations and goals. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And as you have made that comment, it occurs to me that I might more easily consider myself a manager trainee and commit to familiarizing myself with all of those documents that you've mentioned. And I'll be honest, until I got this laptop going, I really didn't have easy access to all the documents that were being offered up. But now that I have Slack installed on this laptop, I have much better access to the documents. So let me offer that as my commitment for the next week, and then maybe we can continue the discussion of my role in Divvy next week after I have looked more carefully at all those documents.
Yeah, I really think that makes sense. I mean, we're definitely looking for more brain power to be brought to bear on everything Divvy, and having that background as to the foundation documents and so forth, I think is so important. It's sort of like practicing law, having studied the Constitution, for instance, right? We've over the last 6 or 8 months, we've we have just worked through these concepts over and over again, and refined them, and put them in the found the proper place for them, and so on and so forth. And I think that it's very, very important to understand that what that's all about.
Well, good. Yes, I agree, and I look forward to an interview for this position as soon as we can schedule one.
Awesome.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think what you were suggesting, Gary, was that you would you say offer yourself in a position of manager in training, and that you would go ahead and take a look at the documents and so forth. And I would, say, go ahead and do that. And then, let's schedule that, informal interview. Okay. I mean, this isn't, I don't know, like, interviewing for a job at IBM or something.
Right. Yeah, I think we can identify some areas where you are most intrigued to participate. I mean, the idea that we can work on the web ID together and bring you up to speed on that is good. I think I have no question that you'll find that among all of the roles that need to be filled in the Divvy, that you will find one. I mean, one of the roles, for example, is just to curate the considerate. In terms of what projects, keeping track of what projects we're working on, and making sure that what's on considerate reflects the current state of what we're working on and what's being proposed in the Divvy. That's one example of many of the things that need to be done, that we need to find people to step up to the plate to. So some of the things are very simple. It's more of a matter of you finding out which of the things really motivate you to want to participate in.
Yeah, and I just pasted into the chat the strategic goals document. It's Divvy vision, mission, and goals. So I mean, this would give a good start for you.
Okay. Good. I've got, I see that.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind is that let me just put it this way. One of the big things that I've concentrated on is doing things with a real methodology. All right. And when when you look through this Divvy vision, mission, and goals, it relates to proposals and projects that mint or reward Divvy tokens. Okay, so a fundamental responsibility that the managers have is to manage the Divvy tokens in a responsible way. And that's a lot of what our business is all about. So that's certainly something to really keep in mind.
All right. I think I'm not sure what was you were talking about a document where you were talking about roles, but we really need to define the various roles so that we need at this point and need to fill at this point. So I'm just listing some of them in the agenda here that I'm thinking of offhand, where we have
Okay.
a need right now.
Mhm.
The speaking of calendar, I don't know if I didn't get it on this agenda, but past several weeks ago, I brought up the idea that we needed a calendar, and we were using the scenario public calendar for Divvy activities, and I've been trying to hook up a calendar with our YouTube channel without much success. What I ended up doing this morning was creating a Google account called Divvy Dow, which is a community account, a brand account, they call it, for the community, Divvy. So we now have a Google account, and I've made you managers of it. You should probably got an email notification
When would that have happened?
this morning.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so that gives us a Google Plus page, which we may or may not want to use much, but we can certainly use it periodically. I mean, it has no connections to it now, so it's not going to reach many people.
Can you? I don't see in my email. What would it be under?
I don't know. It said send invites, and I hit send.
Was it before the meeting?
Yeah.
Ah.
Where is it?
Yeah. If you can paste a link, is there a link that would get us there?
Yeah, let me see if I can. And I linked it to our YouTube account, and it was behaving weird.
I have to go now. But yeah, how should we do it with the legal thing? I guess you're going to talk about it soon, and yeah, I don't
know. Talk about what?
Like the next agenda point. Like I will not be able to be there. Like I have to go now, but
yeah. Well, we'll talk about it for sure. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure,
I mean, this is an example of a Divvy strategic goal, is to really figure this out. And it sounds to me like they're kind of the one-stop shopping place for all things crypto.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so right now we have a Colorado
LLC.
A Colorado LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this would create a second entity, which would be a Swiss corporation of some kind.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
And we would basically join this program of blockchain attorneys.
Like I would even, yeah, I even think like they sounded very like pessimistic about the US environment, and I don't even know if it makes sense to keep any company really related in the United States. I guess this might, like, we maybe should like have a talk with them more, like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Divvy can have many participating organizations, but we could make the main organization in Switzerland. I don't know, but
or the other way around. I mean, it depends on where our operations maybe take place. In other words, if we're doing a project through a Swiss entity, does that provide the protection that the legal counsel thinks is needed?
yeah,
I don't know.
And we can talk again with the other blockchain attorney guy at some point and get his thing. One of the things that concerns about me is that MaxForce US is strongly focused in the beginning on the United States.
It is.
I'm just wondering about how they would feel about
A foreign entity.
Us working through a foreign entity.
I don't know.
That's an issue. It may not be an issue, but it's certainly something to consider.
Well, see, I mean, the thing is that with MaxForce, the authors of that whole business plan come from an American corporate background and also banking background, and I think to a certain extent securities background. So they've tailored everything towards being compliant with SEC regulations, and the real question here is how does tokenization differ from SEC related concerns? Okay, can they exist outside of that? I think we've been assuming that they can, but we have to be very, very careful with our representations.
Right, and because of the way that Quarks work, I don't think we can have the same issues of it being a security or whatever. But I guess at some point you do. The thing is, it goes back to the comic book law. It's
Okay.
like when you make
See you, Killian. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Bye-bye. But, it's the comic book law. If, you make comic books because people enjoy the comic books or whatever, not because of people are going to trade them. You can't control that people are going to trade them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not considered an asset because they're not made. The intent is different, and when they have sponsors that award people based on points, could be airline miles, could be anything else. You're having, it's very disconnected from the market.
Right.
So I don't think that'll be an issue there. I think that we will run it. There are good reasons to certainly consider that, and I think my main concern about, if we're going to join this consortium, well, first of all, I'd like to talk to the other blockchain attorney first. Obviously, he did offer to help us again, and we are getting to the point, or toward a point where we might want to talk to him again.
Well, maybe
we have, the new roadmap has to include the mini ICO.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot of changes to the roadmap, which I have to work on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me know when you're in there. Okay, and I'll follow up. Okay, because I think, again, from my viewpoint, since that document is being worked on in the public domain, you know, we if we can, we want it to be as complete in as short a period of time as possible. In other words, if it's not a big debate issue, if it's more just a question of, okay, here's the text, here's some editing we need to do, you know, bingo, there it is.
I think it would be good. You know, I can go in and I can put stuff in, put in some changes, and then you can work on the language.
Okay.
Put together. Well, that would work out good.
Right.
Okay, so
and let me, I mean, this is for Gary's information. Gary, as you look through the documents, you'll see reference to the Divvy pilot over and over again. And this is the context that within which we're doing everything in Divvy. It's within the Divvy pilot, all right? And so the Divvy pilot has a certain definition. It's a development space, right? It's an alpha development space. It's not the beta, and we're very clear about that. And I work very, very hard to make sure that everything we do and talk about references the pilot. In other words, these are our training wheels as an organization. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So yeah, I mean, that's my orientation. And I try to orient everything in that regard.
all right. So the final piece on the agenda here is just the max force, which we touched on briefly, just to bring Gary up to speed on that.
Sure. Let me go ahead and do that. So Gary, we've been approached by a private group that wants to put together a collaborative platform for aggregating data on political issues. So aggregate the data, create a discussion and debate forum, and also create a crypto token for rewarding people participating. And they they're talking about bringing some money in to pay us, essentially Divvy, to be project managers and developers of to create their platform as an extension of the Divvy platform. And I'm in the process of putting together a memorandum of understanding that we will be sharing with them very, very soon to get their input on it. In other words, it's in our case here, we want to walk before we run with them. And we need to set ground rules and so on and so forth that essentially put in place the protocols that we would follow in this relationship, leading to binding agreements. So we're approaching a memorandum stage with these people. And that's where we're at. And the other thing is that we refrain from talking specifically about the particular documents and other material that they would consider to be intellectual property. We do not expose it in this environment, this public environment. So, we're somewhat limited by that in what we can actually talk about in the community meeting.
Yeah, a little more background is, they planned this system as a centralized system.
Mm-hmm.
And then they jumped on the scenario bandwagon. Said scenario, perfect for developing this social environment that they're trying to create for their system. And then they found the Divvy. And at about the same time they found the Divvy, they said, wow, the Divvy, this is just what we want. And this is going to be with scenario, and this is great. And I guess John Wilson read all our stuff and said, yeah, we were going to do the centralized, but we want to do it decentralized now, and you guys know about that. We don't know about that. We want you to, we want to work with you guys. And it turns out that, building the Divvy DAO itself and bring your own identity overlap with what they want us to do completely, except that they have a particular use case that is their proprietary marketing methodology and reward mechanism, and it's not exactly what we wanted to do anyway. It's, so we don't feel any need that we have to reveal it before they're ready to reveal it, because they obviously will reveal it when they go to market.
Yeah, well, and it's totally in keeping, again, if you look at the documents, we say, Divvy is a platform for creating extensions on our primary software, basically. The Divvy core being a key element of our software platform, which is open source, or which we mean to be open source. And what we say is that anybody can have access to that and can develop a sister DAO to Divvy using the Divvy platform. It can be all open source. Whatever they develop can be all open source, can be a hybrid, part open source, part proprietary, or it could be proprietary, okay? And what we have is an opportunity now, working with them to, in an actual situation, to see how open source, hybrid, and proprietary work together in the Divvy, within Divvy, and how we deal with that, how we retain what should be Divvy's according to Divvy's principles, how Divvy principles coincide with a proprietary application, all of these things. Okay, so this is a huge opportunity for us, and they will be a customer to Divvy. Okay, so that they will actually be paying Divvy for the development work.
Yeah. You have any questions on that?
Money. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't have any questions about it. I'll have to do some thinking about that myself. Non-disclosure agreements can be problematic, but again, the idea of creating these hybrid sorts of blockchain, open source, private, closed source is intriguing. I'll have to make up my mind whether it's a problem I want to concern myself with. But no, I'm very interested. It sounds exciting.
Yeah, I think, my intention is to stay focused on primarily on the open source part. Of course, in terms of doing the specific changes that they want, I'm willing to be involved. I think that's a good use case experiment in customizing what we want. But I'm certainly not. I'm not really looking for being part of much focused on the proprietary part of the project.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, is there any other business? Open forum?
Yeah. Nothing from me.
No, I'm good for now.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.